Hey, Ollie Hoopa. I just wanted to say hello. It's been a little while since I've made any kind of videos. I've just been really busy and things like that, like everybody else. And I'm gonna try to sit a little higher up. There we go. And not knock down the camera because I've done that twice now. And I'm at work, so that's why it's different. Anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about since I live abroad, I live in Sweden. I was born in America, raised in America, and I came to Sweden about 2 years ago to be with my husband. And since being here, we've had a son. So I kind of wanted to just talk a little bit about the differences between here and in America. Um, like the birthing and everything like that. I've never had a child in America, but I know lots of people who have, so I just kind of wanted to tell you my experience having a child abroad and having a pregnancy abroad compared, and then you can compare and contrast what you think it would have been like to have a child abroad. If you're just like wondering and have questions or whatever. Sorry, I'm rambling. I didn't really take notes for this much, but I'm going to be making other videos on other mommy things. So, anyways, I'll get started. So, I have a 8-month-old, almost 9-month-old son that I had here in Sweden. Um, right after I got here in 2018, I was here about 3 months, and I found out I was pregnant. About 3 months after getting here, we just got pregnant, and I want to say we called the in Sweden it's universal health care. It's not like I didn't have a doctor or anything. I don't have an insurance plan, so I don't call. You don't call like an insurance plan and ask them who you're supposed to call. I actually spoke with a teacher in this SFI program that I was in. I told her that I was pregnant. She's a close personal uh, friend, and she referred me to the um, doctor that she used when she was pregnant with her children, and it was really close to like the center of town, so it was like perfect for me. They are called Riks Ricks and Stender. I think that's what they're called. It's Stender, I think, is city, and Ricks is an old word for because the country is a king and queen, so it's confusing. Anyways, so I called them, and I'd say about like a week or two later, I got into there, and they did like blood work. I think they checked my urine. I think I did a STD, like a chlamydia check, I think it was, because I heard that can be really bad if you're pregnant. And they just kind of like talked to you and asked you different things, like when your last period was and stuff like that. And then I believe we got to listen to the heartbeat then too. And I want to say I was 13 weeks in when I went to the doctor for the first time um, for when I was pregnant. Um, and then after that, you go pretty much like not once a month, maybe once month and a half or something like that, depending if like there's an issue or something like that. With me, because I have a thyroid issue, I had to go and do blood work quite frequently, um, so they could check that. Uh, and I could either go there or they did blood work. The day that I found out, the day that I first day I went there too, I remember this now. They did blood work, and being pregnant in the beginning, you're kind of like dizzy and woozy and everything. And because I have hard veins to find, because my veins are not good. They roll and they collapse and they're small and they're not the best. She kept trying to find a vein to draw the blood, and she's sticking me like multiple times in my arms and my hands, and my husband is sitting next to me. And I took off my glasses and I put them on the table because I knew I was like getting ready to pass out, and I let them know I'm going to pass out, but it's hard to I'm telling them in English. I don't know if they were paying attention. So I turned to my husband. I told him I'm gonna pass out, and he's like, "No, you're not. You're fine." And I went, and he caught me. And the next thing I remember, I was laying on the floor, and they're like fanning me, and they're putting cold water on my head, and they're like, okay, we're not gonna draw any more blood. Um, we can do this another day. And I was like, okay, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. So that was an eventful first, you know, time. It happens to me so many times where, and it's not their fault. I don't blame them, you know. It happens to me all the time whenever I go to get blood drawn. If they have to stick me, usually more than twice, I start to get like I'm gonna pass out, and I usually let them know, like, okay, I always take off my glasses now so I don't break them. Um, I try to hold on to the bottom of the chair so that I don't fall forward, so I slide backwards, I guess. And I usually will tell them that I'm getting ready to pass out, or I start to put my head down so they know. It just happened to me recently. I went for blood work because I have Crohn's disease, so I went for blood work, and they then she stick me. She couldn't find it. She's sticking me again, and she found it. She drew the blood, and everything was fine. And then it was afterwards I started getting really dizzy, like I was gonna pass out. And she's like going to get water, and dextrose, which is like these little candies. They're like sugar candy. It has vitamins in it, I think, and it's just a brick of sugar and wet paper towel. And I was like, what the hell is going on? You know, I didn't expect this to happen. Usually, it doesn't happen after. It usually happens during. So it was just strange. But anyways, so I went to a couple. From then, I just went to that place. And then when you had like your first ultrasound and your second ultrasound, you would go to the hospital, the local hospital in your town. They don't do it at the doctor's office. The only thing they do at the doctor's office, the baby doctor, is they can listen to the heartbeat. Um, they can do an ultrasound if there's an emergency while you were there, but it's not a standard thing because it's an old machine. It's not a newer machine, so they don't like to use it unless they have to. So I have had it before, because I was nervous. He didn't feel them. And I just got nervous. And they're like, okay, we'll check real quick. But usually you go to the doctor, the hospital in town, and they did the ultrasounds there. It was quick. It was 8 in the morning. No 3D. They don't do that or anything. There's no 3D picture. It's just a black and white picture. And you go first in the beginning, and then again when to find out the sex, and then that's it. Um, and then everything was going well. I was having like a lot of pain in my hips and in my legs and contractions, like when I was around 7 months, because I was working a hard job. So I told them at the doctor, and they had me see another doctor in the same office, and he wrote me a sick leave because he had said I had SPD, and because of the contractions, it was way too early to be having these type of things happen at 7 months. So they told me to stop working, so I did a little after 7 months, and then I was home pretty much, and everything was fine. I mean, it went really well. I have no complaints whatsoever going through the whole pregnancy time in Sweden. I had no problems, no complaints. It was, I perfectly fine. Um, I was a week late for my son was due February 22nd, 23rd, day after my birthday. No, he was due February 14th. He was born a day after my birthday on February 23rd, so he was about a week late. And I go in on my birthday, and I didn't expect them to do anything, but they said we might induce you. We'll see. If not, you can go home and sit for another week, because in Sweden, you don't just go to the hospital. You call first. There's a number called it's 1177, and you call them and you ask them like, and this is anytime you think you want to go to the hospital, unless it's an absolute emergency, you call first the 1177, which is like nurses, and you call them. You say, this is what my problem is. What should I do? And if they recommend you to go to the hospital, what they do is they contact the hospital, let you know you're coming, so they can get ready. Or they tell you to just stay home and wait. Um, and contact your regular doctor. So I went in on the day of my birthday because I had an appointment. Basically, we are just going to check like the placenta and stuff like that to see if I need to be induced. So they checked, and my placenta was not as it didn't have as much fluid as it should have. So they said, okay, we're going to go ahead and start the induction, and that was around 10:30 in the morning on the 22nd of February. So it was a week after I was due. So I was like, okay. And then they put like this uh, string medicine inside you. I don't know what it was. It was just like some kind of medicine to start softening the cervix, I guess. And they're like, just lay back, relax. It's going to take 24 hours at least to get, work in. So just kind of hang tight. So I'm like, okay, cool. And they hooked me up to like the belly monitor and everything. And I could see my son's heartbeat and everything. And you could see like the contractions, how strong they are. So about an hour later, I told my husband, I'm like, I don't feel good. I'm in a lot of pain. And I know, is this supposed to be happening? And he's like, oh, I'm sure it's okay. Um, and it was like lunchtime, so he's like, I'm gonna go downstairs and get a sandwich. Do you want anything? I'm like, oh, maybe some candy or something just to get my mind off of, the pain. And he's like, okay, just call them if you need anything. So I'm like, okay. So I'm laying there, and I'm like, the pain, like the contractions are coming on so strong, and it's like really painful. And I'm like, this just doesn't seem right. I was like, this seems really weird. So I hit the button, and the lady comes in, and I'm like, förlåt, förlåt. I try to speak Swedish. I'm so sorry. I'm in a lot of pain. I don't understand. And she looks at my son's heart rate, and she panics, and she hits this button, and she runs out. And then she comes running back in with all of these people. There's like 5 or 6 people running around, and they're speaking Swedish. I don't know what the hell's going on. And they're like, we need to take out the medicine. So they take out the induction thing. There's blood, and my husband comes walking in, and there's all these people, and he's kind of like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, I have no idea, man. Everybody's speaking Swedish. They're trying to find a vein. They're sticking me in the legs with this medicine to stop the contractions. I guess my son did not like the induction, and his heart rate dropped from 140 to about 94. And then I kept going. It was like 74, and they were panicking that he was, they were losing him. So they pulled out the induction. They're like sticking me with this stuff to try and stop the contractions. I'm bleeding, and they're just like, they finally, after a little while, they get everything under control, and they're like, the contractions should slow down now. Just relax. We'll monitor you. If you need anything, just press the button and we'll come in. So I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck? What the hell just happened? That was crazy. I'd only been in the hospital for an hour. And this stuff was supposed to take 24 hours to take effect. It took an hour. So they said it just that he didn't like it. It kind of put him into stress. So then after that, every which way I laid, whether it was on my left or my right, or he would get stressed and his heart rate would drop, and I'd have to move. They'd come and run, and they'd come and yell, you have to move now. You have to keep moving. You have to keep moving. So they told me I had to walk and everything, because every time I would get in a certain position, he would just get stressed and his heart rate would drop again. And I'd have to move around so his heart rate would go back up. So it was interesting. And they couldn't give me anything for pain, because if they did, his heart rate would drop. So I was just kind of out of luck at that point with just pain. I couldn't get any gas or anything. So we just walked, me and my husband. So I guess like around 5 or 6, they ended up coming in the same day, and giving me dinner. And that was really good. I ate that. I ate it, but I couldn't eat it all. I was kind of like in pain and having contractions and nauseous, and I tried to eat, but I couldn't eat everything because it was just pain. When you're in pain, you can't. It doesn't matter how hungry you are. It's you just can't do it. You can't do certain things that you normally do when you're not in pain, because the pain kind of just controls you. Um, anyways, so this was 10:30 in the morning. I got there around 5. I ate dinner, and then around 9 or so, we were like, okay, we're gonna try to watch a movie because we brought the laptop because there's no TVs in the rooms there. We're gonna watch a movie and try to watch a movie, try to relax, and try to get some sleep because they came in and they said there's no doctors here tonight. We'll go ahead and we'll try the induction again tomorrow. So just kind of hang tight, relax. And I said I'm in a lot of pain. Is there anything you can give me to just kind of relax me, or so I can sleep because I'm in so much pain? And they're like, we can give you something to kind of relax you, but that's all we can do for your son, for because of your son's heart rate. And I said okay. So they gave me that. Did nothing whatsoever. So I just laid there, and it was probably like my husband. I think maybe he fell asleep. It's probably like 1 in the morning, and my contractions were coming on strong, man. They were like, I didn't want to wake my husband, so I'm just kind of like laying there, and I'm breathing, and I'm like, I'm kind of like panicking a little bit, but I'm not. I don't want to wake him. He didn't have a bed or anything. It was just a chair. It's just a small chair for him to sit in because typically they don't stay the night when you're in the labor. It's weird the way the system is. It's after they can go home and then come back if the labor is not happening for many hours. They tell them to go home and then come back. But since there were so many complications that we had early on, they let him stay. So it was like 1:30 in the morning. I'm having these wicked pain so bad. These contractions are coming crazy. So I hit the button again, and I'm like, look, I'm sorry. I know you can't give me anything, but I'm in so much pain. And they're like, they come in and they're like, well, it looks like you're actually in labor now. So we can't do anything to stop it. So we're just gonna go ahead and let it happen, and we'll do what we can. We'll do because there wasn't any doctors there, so it was just like the midwives, which was fine. Um, I had faith in them. I had faith in the whole thing. Like a lot of people, um, at first I was nervous because I didn't know what to expect. Living in another country, you don't know what to expect about the healthcare system, especially coming from America. You don't know what another country's healthcare system is, especially since it's universal healthcare. You hear scary stories about people who don't get help, and they're sick and everything because of the universal healthcare. And then, but I had no problem. They were wonderful. Um, they did a wonderful job. But anyways, so they're like, you're in labor. We can go ahead and start the lift gas low. So I was like, thank you, Lord, something for the relief, because I'd been having contractions since 10:30 in the morning. So by 1:30, I was tired. I was exhausted, and now I have to do this labor thing. So they turned on the lift gas, and they put it. It's a mask you hold over your face like this, and they're like, just breathe in and let it out, and it'll ease the contractions a little bit. And just kind of wait. We'll come in and keep checking you to see if you're dilated and whatnot. So I think it was about 3 or 4 in the morning. I was about 7 centimeters dilated, and they turned up the lift gas, and I was in pain, man. And they kept coming in and checking him, and there was some problem with his lactic acid or my lactic acid. I think there's some problem there, and they're monitoring it. So they had gotten a doctor, and she was kind of like maybe she wasn't a doctor. I think she was like the head midwife. Um, she was like the in charge of them, and she was monitoring them and everything, and she was the one testing, and she was the one um, kind of calling the shots. And then I was 10 centimeters dilated. I'm pushing like crazy. I'm in so much pain. I've got this mask pushed to my face. I had like this big red mark from the lift gas on my face. I was screaming. Um, and then they checked me again. And then I heard them say, nope, that's it. She's going into surgery. And I'm like, what? And my husband, like, he's crying and he's like freaking out because I'm kind of like in and out of it. I don't know exactly what the hell is going on. Apparently, the My son couldn't come out natural. He was in so much stress that they had to get him out now. So they ran me into the emergency room to do an emergency C-section on him. And I was kind of, like I said, in and out of it. And my biggest fear was an epidural. I didn't want an epidural because the thought of having a needle in my spine kind of freaked me out when they can't find a fucking vein and they're going to try to put a needle in my back. I was nervous. So we get in there and they're like, we have to put an epidural. And at this point, I'm like, I don't care what you do. Whatever happens, happens. So they lay me down on my side and they're like, you have to lay completely still. And I'm like, I'm 10 centimeters dilated. And I'm going through these contractions like this, and you want me to lay still? So I'm really trying, and my body's contracting. So one person laid on my legs, and the other person kind of laid on my chest, like, because I was like this. And they held me down so I wouldn't move, so they could get the epidural in. And they used the same scar that I had my other surgery, my Crohn's surgery with. So it's not a C-section scar going this way, it's a C-section scar going up and down. And they got him out quickly. They got him out pretty quick, but I didn't hear him. That wasn't that like iconic cry. My husband could see them, and he said they were over there for 15 minutes working on him before they took him away. And he was watching and watching, crying, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Is everything okay? And he's just like rubbing my head. And then I see them run by with my son, and they grabbed my husband. And my son was blue, and he wasn't crying. He was nothing. So they took and they ran him to the NIC unit, and then they got other doctors. They were working on him, trying to get his heart started, and his lungs were full of fluid, and they're pumping his lungs out, I guess. And my husband's watching all of this while they're trying to sew me back up in the C-section room. Nobody's telling me what's going on. I have no idea what's happening. My husband isn't there. Nobody. I mean, there's people there that can't speak English, so they can't help me. They can't answer my questions. So I'm just kind of like, I'm laying there wondering what the hell is going on. Where's my son? Where's my husband? And 15 or so, 20 minutes pass, and they come back and they're like, it's okay. We're working on him. Don't worry. Everything's gonna be okay. And I'm like, okay, what's wrong? And my husband said they were working on him for a while, and then they called a doctor that I guess he was in the hospital somewhere, but he was like not. He was on call. He was asleep, and he came running up, and he took over. And finally, they got my son started and breathing and heart started, and they got everything out of his stomach, and they put a feeding tube in, and yeah, got him going. And he opened his eyes and looked at my husband, and it was just, yeah. And my husband was crying. He said it was just, yeah, so panic. Then they wheeled me into like the recovery room, and I'm just laying there. Still have no idea what's going on with my son. It's now about an hour and a half later. About an hour later. Hour and a half, I guess. 2 hours. And my husband comes in with the nurse, and he's like, oh, he's fine, he's okay, he's doing great. I saw him, I got to touch him, he's doing great. When you're done, you'll get to see him soon. So I laid there probably for another half an hour, and then they wheeled me into the room, and then they brought my son in, and I got to see him about 2.5 hours later, I guess, almost 3 hours later. And he had a little feeding tube in, but he was fine. He was doing so much better. But they kept him in the NIC unit for about 3 days. That's where we all stayed. And then we got moved to like the outgoing room. And we were there about 2 days. So in total, I think we were in the hospital about 5 days. And your family can't come and visit you until you're in the outgoing room. And it's 1 hour a day, visiting hours between 6 and 7. So it's completely different than America. America is like come and go. There's like no visiting hours. Tons of people can be in the delivery room with you. In Sweden, it's one person. That's it. And the visiting hours is 1 hour a day. So it's a little bit different. Personally, I liked it. I don't want 10,000 people in my delivery room. I don't want to have to feel like I have to entertain anybody while I'm in this god awful pain. So it was nice just having me and my husband in there, um, to kind of lean on each other since it was something we were going through together. So I personally was 100% okay with that. My family was upset because they wanted to be there, but I liked that it was just me and my husband. And then, yeah, we were in the NICU unit for 2 days, and then the other outgoing room for 2 days, and it was nice. After we had the baby, they came in with like sparkling juice and a big breakfast for me and my husband, and like a congratulation like little flag, and it was really adorable, really nice. Before they brought the baby in, we had could have breakfast together, and it was really really cute. And then we took him home. Like I said, about 5 days later, and yeah, he did great. And the rest of the next video will be from when we got home until now. So thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. If you have any questions or comments, leave them and let me know. Um, if you want to know anything else about anything I might have missed, or if you have any questions about the healthcare system and in Sweden, and if I think what I paid for the 5 days being there, if you translate it to U.S. dollars. Emergency C-section. My son was in the unit for 3 days, and me and my husband were in the hospital for 5. I paid a total of 50 U.S. dollars. In America, I know I would have paid a lot more. You do have a higher tax bracket here, so everybody's paying higher taxes. But in America, it would have been a lot more. Even if you have insurance, it would have been a lot more, especially with the emergency C-section. I can only fucking imagine. So, anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Thank you very, very much. Hey-do. And look, I just will show you real quick. Oh my god, the sun is out here in Sweden. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. It's beautiful. We'll have to take advantage of the sun coming out in the winter because it doesn't happen very often. But anyways, hej då allihopa.